Hello, my name is Emmy. Welcome to my channel, and this is the first day of the 12 days of Yule. I've always done something for Yule or for winter solstice, but last year is where I really thought about making more of a dedicated effort to having a daily ongoing ritual that worked out very beautifully for me, both in the moment. It gave me something to look forward to every day. As a spiritual practitioner, it's sometimes hard to have something that you do every single day. And I feel like the long-term impact throughout 2025 really helped to ground me a bit more. And there are a few other layers of it that I think were more effective for at the end of one year, beginning of a new year, this tendency to want to create new goals, all that jazz. So I am excited to be taking you all on the journey this year because it worked out really well for me. And I wanted to share some of that for you, whether you all want to just watch me do it or if you want to participate. I will, of course, talk to you about what you need to do to participate and what all needs to be accounted for. You could be as involved or as simple as you want to be. If you're not really keen on making it ritualistic, then just having a journal would also be more than sufficient. A few things. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video. I'll be giving you all a little bit of backstory, a little bit more context. Not all of them will be this long. I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically. We take a lot for granted in the community that we all just know the same things. So wanted to spend a little bit of time digging into that. A little bit of info about me and my practice. If you all do have any questions, things that you all want me to address as like a little inter-ramble as I continue on with the 12 days, since I'll be pretty much filming in real time for the most part and then uploading same day, I do think that there's some room if people want to ask a question, and very likely I'll be able to find it in time and then answer. So that way it could be a bit more conversational. I feel like it's somewhere in between, not quite a live stream in that way, not quite like a regular vlog sort of situation. But yeah, what even is Yule? What is solstice? Yule comes from the Old English word Yule, and it shares a history with the equivalent word from Old Norse, which is Yule. And I probably might still be getting both of those wrong after trying a few times over, but we're doing our best. These are all terms that are indicative of the midwinter celebrations that would happen around the solstice. And these would traditionally mark the halfway point of winter and would take place on the solstice, which is, as we alluded to, the longest day, least amount of daylight. And I know that we've all been feeling it. Even as somebody who loves winter, it can be rough. You do feel more run down, but the whole point of this being a midwinter celebration is that you are supposed to be engaging in revelry, in hearty meals, indoorsy activities. So they would have done caroling, wassailing would be the traditional term. A lot of drinking, a lot of dancing. Those are all very solar activities. Dancing is a solar activity. A lot of these things also build up heat, so there's also the layer of this is all really in veneration of the sun. We're all trying to do what we can to celebrate bringing back the sun. The real beauty about this is having a sense of hope around this time of year, that there's the return of the light. There is a sense of renewal, a little bit of a letting go too. It's a good time to let go of anything you want to the void, into the darkness, let yourself reflect a bit more, and come into the changing season with more of a fresh perspective, state of mind. We need all the seasons for a reason, and it could be a rougher one, but I feel like a lot of practitioners, regardless of whether or not they like the winter season, they do still really love and value Yule, that they love to have a solstice celebration. So at the end of the day, it is still a nice high point to keep us anchored in a time where we should be slowing down, reflecting. I'm literally filming this from in my pajamas with baby Baphomet. So yeah, we're really locking into that to shift gears. Every culture that would venerate this time of year had their own way of approaching it. It was pretty commonplace until around the 4th century. Pope Julius I said that they wanted for the Christmas feast day to fall on December 25th. That way it would align with the Roman pagan day Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, or the birthday of the invincible sun. So that's kind of where we see that overlap happening there. So in a sense, it wasn't quite all of a sudden there was one pagan thing and then only the Christian thing. It's always a little bit more complicated than that. So it was one shift that triggered a ripple effect across, where we would see less and less of the traditional Yule celebrations be chalked up to Yule and then being folded into Christmas as a result. We've rehashed it a lot. I don't want to make this a let's talk about all the ways that Christianity took something from paganism, because that is also a complicated bit of discourse. It's not quite that black and white. So I'm like, let's not get into the weeds. That's not the point of this video. The thing that I will note is that Yule does have a connection to the Christmas tree. There would be even a Yule tree. I know that we think of a Yule log when we think about Yule, but even predating medieval times, there was a Yule tree. Families would bring the trunk of the Yule tree into the house and then stick the biggest end of it into the fireplace. When it became syncretized with Christianity is where the fire would be fed over the 12 days of Christmas, over Christmas tide, December 25th into January 5th. So the 12th night. The shift to, again, coincide with the Christmas feast day. We will be doing our 12 days of Yule to coincide with a handful of things. One, your solstice will traditionally be either the 20th or the 22nd, depending on how the calendar will fall that year. And I personally prefer having my 12 days in that current year. I would rather go from the 20th to the 31st and then have the first day of the Gregorian calendar be a time to just be present, celebrate, take it easy, not be so focused on ritual, because it kind of frees me up to be out. If I would like to have my day be a bit more flexible, that time frame a little bit after Christmas, like between the new year, is kind of a weird time for a lot of us. If you have a good amount of time off even, or even if you don't, you're kind of sitting around going, what day is it even? Knowing that's kind of the mindset, I'm like, oh, that's even better for squirreling more of that time away for ritual, versus January 1st, I am more inclined to want to go have brunch somewhere, go enjoy the day. The other beautiful thing about the Yule tree, the Yule log, is that there is the intersection of magical and mundane, that the ashes do have beneficial properties for your house plants, for anything that you are seeding, and it can really help to feed your garden. So there is this element of, yes, this is the time of year that feels barren, that feels like, oh, there's nothing to look forward to, everything is dead. There is truly, again, that sense of the light coming back, renewal. We are all allowing ourselves to prepare for the return of life, the return of new growth. That is one aspect of it. The other being the metaphysical property of these ashes bringing good luck and protecting the home, bringing good luck and protecting the home. It's ultimately a win-win because we're protecting the home as far as allowing for more fertile growth. There's also that kind of folk perspective. So that was really, really neat. That is the benefit if you are using a real Yule log for your Yule celebrations. That leads me further down this pipeline of this through line of me and my own perspective, my own take of Yule. So I do have a complicated history with Christmas time. Family is a little weird. People tend to argue a lot over the holidays. It's a whole thing. I don't want to hash it all out now, but that was absolutely part of it. Having a complicated history with Christianity, with being raised Roman Catholic as a child. So there is a lot of that. I also have a December birthday. So there's an element of your birthday feeling overshadowed by Christmas. It's not untrue of well, what's the difference between Christmas and solstice or Christmas and Yule? I feel like the hype of one is absolutely more important than the other is, I think, probably the thing that gets to me. The other layer of, with Christmas, having a lot of ascribed feelings, like you should be perfectly happy, you should feel so festive. You should be, if you're not happy on Christmas, there's something wrong with you. And I feel like with Yule, there is room and space for the full spectrum of feeling, where you could be bummed out about what didn't work out, and you can hold space around what you'd like to release. You can be excited about what's to come. You can maybe even be fearful. You can embrace that, because again, the whole thing is that there was a lack of light, and lack of light can trigger a lot, whether it is a rooted fear or shadow coming through, a lot of different things along those lines. I do feel that with Yule, with celebrating solstice, you can have more space to be a human, especially with how 2025 has gone for a lot of us. I think there is even more of a sense of, it's great to give yourself something to look forward to. It's also very valid if you're having a hard time feeling perfectly joyous. That is absolutely a reason why I have felt especially drawn to having some kind of Yule tradition that I hold myself to. And again, to name the December birthday thing, I have had a number of my birthdays in the past either overlap with or directly coincide with Hanukkah. And growing up in the program that I was in high school, I knew a lot of Jewish people then. I knew a lot of Jewish people. Actually, now that I think about it, it goes even further back than high school. I went to a handful of bat mitzvahs. So there's a through line of, I had experiences in middle school, high school, and then in college, I had a lot of Jewish friends, and even a few that converted into Judaism. As a result, that meant that, oh, it's Emmy's birthday. We're all going to meet at, I can't remember if the building itself was called Hillel, but the group was called Hillel. For context, I went to school on a hilltop. We'd all meander down and then crawl our way back up after having a lot of Manischewitz, and then staying up all night because, again, of said Manischewitz. I really appreciated that even with, Hanukkah being a lesser holiday, it's not a high holiday, that it's a multi-day experience, that it is something that is sacred but still done in the home, and that it is still highly valued even with being done in the home. Nothing is taken away from it by being in someone's living room. I was always very struck by that. I thought that was a beautiful tradition. The story of it really resonated with me. So as somebody who was brought into a lot of different December time holiday experiences, that kind of really helped inform where I've landed now as a spiritual practitioner, as a witch, that it feels right for me to have a 12 days of Yule. And that leads us to the right that I have sheets, because of course I do. I use the natal wheel chart as a kind of guidepost for making note of the petitions, of the goals I'm setting, some of them just straight up feel like wishes, because you could sit with things as long as you want and then maybe you still not know what feels aligned. And maybe it's just best to say, I would love if this thing happened this year. And if it becomes more clarified as time goes on, awesome. If not, then maybe next year you'll have a clear idea. When putting together this idea last year, I loved being able to use the chart as a way to set these little micro petitions, because the natal chart is your whole life, different areas of your life. It felt like I was able to think about the year in a more well-rounded way and not be so like, I have to lose 30 pounds. I don't have to go and do this one big thing and then it falls apart. Even when we think about goal setting in general, if you think about even aligning it with your perfection year, where let's say in my case, I'm going through a 12 house year. My 12 house is Virgo, which means that my time lord is Mercury. So I might still have more of a mercurial focus as far as what my priorities might be. I might be more focused on writing. Even when I think about Mercury in a more Greek pantheon context, like about Hermes, then maybe there is more of a focus on travel, on me letting myself be an athlete again, and the focus on the word athlete and not I have fitness goals is letting myself be in love with movement again and not a certain aesthetic whatever and the trap that has us all fall into. I feel like that has worked out better for me overall. So day 1 is the first house and first house themes. Day 2, second house themes. You get the idea. You could treat it like an exercise, having a journal, and then making note of things on a daily basis. As I briefly alluded to in the beginning, there will be questions that I share on each day that are helping inform what I might feel drawn to. For the sake of my own practice, I'm not going to share my exact petitions, but I am going to share my thought processes, how I'm thinking through them, maybe even a little bit of reflections on how things have gone the past year and how that's feeding into where I might want things to go going forward. And I also like it a lot too because unlike looking at an astrological star chart, you can see the relationships between things, like things that were opposite each other. How did those things work out? Did things that were squaring each other have more tension? It could be really interesting for a number of reasons. I have found this to be very helpful because it allows me to think more holistically about my life. We get so in our heads, like this year has to have only one theme, and life is always more than one thing. I feel like it really lends itself well to being forgiving, but also realistic. Also, I am awful at keeping a witch's journal, so there's also that. I like to have my blank sheet to help me feel supported and like I can keep track of what it is that I am calling in, what I am declaring, and then being able to see it all completed. I've always been a chart person. I think that even goes back to public library summer reading program. Like, oh man, I got so many personal pan pizzas by reading so many books because I love to fill out charts. But I digress. That's the way that I'm injecting fun into a time where I'm sleepy, maybe I'm feeling run down, frustrated. It's a good way to inject levity into it, not unlike what they'd originally do for the midwinter celebrations, that there'd be caroling, dancing, all that fun stuff. So yeah, as far as what you need, you could have at the simplest is having a journal and pen, and then that's it. You could also grab my sheet for transcribing what it is that I am feeding into the Yule fire every day. And then I have my Yule fire and 12 little sheets that I will be writing down what it is that I am calling in, what I am feeding to the light, what I'm feeding into the Yule fire. That could be a cauldron, that could be any other fire-safe dish, candle, maybe a mix of these things if you're feeling drawn to that, because last year I did do a little fire pit that I had that's now recalled, so I won't be using that because there were risks of just spontaneous fire burning down home, and that's not what I want. So yeah, I'll be using my cauldron for the burning, and then I'll have a separate Yule candle that I will be burning concurrently as a way for it to be more meditative and reflective and not just, all right, I burned something. And then that was it. I will have the grid available on my Patreon. When I've hit publish on this and send it out via Patreon, you can go there, grab the sheet, print it out if you know that you're the type of person that likes having a printout if you want to follow along that way, and then have the setup be not unlike what I have done. I'm going to go grab what I need, and then we'll begin with day 1 proper. I might take you along to do that other shopping. That's real modern witchcraft. You don't have everything you need the day that you do a ritual, so let's be real. We're gonna go grab what we need, and then we will do day 1 of Yule together. Ciao for now. Hello, we're back. It was a wonderful little trip to Roots and Ritual. I went to grab the Yule candle, as I noted, and that was like really the main thing that I was missing for this year. I always end up doing a little bit of extra shopping when I'm there. Normally I do some kind of intuitive reading for my solar return, whether it is tarot, medium, etc. And yeah, just got lucky. There was a little block of time that was available for a reading with my friend Leslie, Archive Alchemy. I'll include her information below. She's a wonderful reader. There's plenty of times, even as an astrologer myself, where I love to just hand over the reins to somebody else and to receive, especially when things have been difficult. I feel like I'm a little bit too in my own energy. It's really great to hand somebody my chart and say, "You tell me." It's like I feel tapped out in this area in particular. So yeah, it was really lovely to get her perspective. She covers so much in a short period of time, so really appreciated that. Thank you, Leslie. I wish it was smell-o-vision for this candle, because chef kiss. The Roots and Ritual candles are all hand poured by Heather. It's a mother-daughter duo over at Roots and Ritual. Heather is just very gifted at figuring out the different layers of how to put together a well-balanced candle, because really, it was a hard decision. There were a handful that were sold out because they're just so popular over the holidays, but if you end up in that neck of the woods, if you are just curious about online shopping, supporting queer, woman-owned businesses, especially witchy businesses, they are a great option. Let's just dive right in. We have talked a lot today. The first house, the first day of Yule, is always, I feel like, a lot of remembering what I did last time around, or even thinking about what needs to be done differently for this year's run of it. I do have my tarot cards. These are the ones that I have consecrated for my work with Persephone, my matron goddess. With the 12 house year being my perfection year, I did feel drawn to also grabbing my shadow work deck. This is the Oracle of Pluto, a 55 card exploration of the undiscovered self. It's written by Aubrey Howdeshell, who is also a phenomenal astrologer, and illustrated by Rose Ides. So very beautiful. They're all like little hand shadow puppets and whatnot. To give you a little bit of a gander, it's the Antique Anatomy tarot that I use for communing with the goddess, with the queen. I felt very drawn to it because it's that combination of I love the illustrative style, that mixture of bones and flowers, of death and life, very Kore, very Persephone. So I'll also be doing some card pulls as I'm kind of navigating this as well. The first house in astrology is about the self, appearance, vitality, life force. My other favorite astrology book by Robert Hand, Horoscope Symbols. So I'll also be taking a moment to read through that here too. The first house is one's appearance, the way one appears to others, physical appearance, physical body, health, vitality, traditionally associated with life expectancy through planets placed in the house and through the ruler of the rising sign. The first house is the area of the heavens occupied by the sun during the 2 hours or so before sunrise. In terms of human biological cycles, this period is the day's low point. From this point, it should be obvious that the first house, although potent, cannot be quite so potent as tradition has made it. There is a lot of competing information about the first house, like should it be considered the most important thing only? Is it the most important thing? I think it's always a both and. We have to look at things holistically. The other layer too that I want to note is that on the psychological level, with the interface of the personality being brought in, it's very, very complicated, and it really is also about the flow of the energy from oneself to the outer world. Personality, quote unquote, is derived from persona, a Latin Etruscan word for mask, quote unquote. The personality is the face we present to the world. I like this explanation much more than I have heard others just try to say mask only and not really talk about the persona, the origins, because it really flattens the description. And I feel like when we only hear mask, a lot of people think, oh, this is like the fake you. And more often than not, your rising sign, once you understand it more, once you understand your chart ruler and how that has a great impact on how you and your astrology are like living out in the world, I feel like it really changes the game for people. So that's part of why I'm like, okay, let me make sure I include that. And yeah, there is this element of physicality. Skin is also very first housey. Again, that's like when we're making impressions, if we're being perceived, the largest organ in your body is your skin. So it would stand to reason that the first house is also heavily tied to your skin because that's what people do notice first. That could be tricky. That could be a rough one, but I have a few different ways that I want to begin to unravel this. So let's get into the reflection questions, a little bit of the journaling, and ultimately casting the first petition out into the world, declaring our intent. So, first question that we have here: what elements of my personality am I holding back? How can I lean more into my authenticity? Is there a division or boundary between public self and community self? In a sense, a split between corporate and real personality. How can you allow the real to come through so we feel less disconnected? Is there a part of my personality, fashion sense of style that I am suppressing? How am I suppressing it? What one small change can I make that'll make me feel like I'm putting my best face out there in the new year? That could look like so many things. For instance, some of you may have noticed that I look different than this morning, and it's because I got a haircut. And that is something that I have thought about for a handful of things for the new year, is if I'm more online, it's also easier to show up online when you feel like you're put together. So is it a matter of even making the declaration of saying, I'm going to commit to making sure that my bangs do not fall into disarray? It could also be a matter of if putting your best face out there is easier to activate if you have like your power fragrance on, cologne, oil, lotion. If we're thinking about skin is very first housey thing. Do you wear your sunscreen or sun cream if you're in the UK? Are you dry, dehydrated? Is you ashy? Let's be ash free in 2026. Yes, I did go there. I love bold things in general. I do feel sometimes that the persona that I have in the workplace is very tame, it's very safe, it's a lot of browns. I feel like I come off deeply Saturnian, or even I feel like my Virgo moon can help steer my style. But when I'm not at work, I feel like I want to be bright. I feel like I do want to be seen. I do feel kind of that Libra rising of like, I want to have balance. I want femininity, even hyper femininity. And I do love a bold lipstick. I love a lipstick that you could tell it's a lipstick. I'm not here for clean girl, like me, but better. I'm like, no, I want to look outrageous. So everyone's going to be different. And it's about leaning into what is the most you. And honestly, too, with health being an aspect, if physicality being an aspect of the first house and these different themes, then how have you been neglecting various screenings? Have you been neglecting dermatology visits, doctor visits? Can you commit in the new year to putting these things? You could put it on the calendar to make the appointment and then commit to making the appointment on that day. I have found that incredibly helpful. I have a very popular dermatologist. I was given a tip a while ago to call within a certain time frame. And when I call within that time frame, I will be able to get the day and time of day that I'm wanting. Just a matter of having that level of foresight, that level of commitment, and prioritizing you, because you only have this one life, you only have this one body. We are responsible for ourselves, so let's really do what we can to commit. And if it's been a matter of not being able to prioritize it, or even being afraid of going to certain doctor's visits, then know that even though maybe it would be better if you had gone earlier, you can always make the decision to course correct, to reset the clock, and to show up for yourself. You will be glad that you did it. Even if it's a matter of getting it off of your plate and then being excited that it's one less thing for you to worry about. But yeah, that is all for day one. We're firing, we're doing our thing. And thank you all for bearing with me on this more loquacious, more detailed first day. The days to come will not be quite as involved, but we will be getting into this type of reflection, this type of journaling, this type of daily little ritual to add a little bit more intention, a little bit more presence during this time of year where we really should be slowing down, where we really should be committing to having a more of a chill pace. And I do want to take a moment, of course, to thank my patrons for sponsoring this video. I'd like to thank those that are at the Conjurer tier. Thank you to Karina, Georgia, Jess, Laura, Mallow, and the Wowels. Thank you all for being top tier patrons and for helping make these videos possible. Thank you all, and I will see you all tomorrow for day 2 of the 12 Days of Yule. Bye for now.